All right. Well, welcome everyone. This is Trey Jadlow. I'm here with my friend Justin Mullinix, and we are discussing uh, the Rowan County Clerk Kim Davis, as well as the First Amendment and the doctrine of separation of church and state. I'm so glad to have my friend Justin here with the camera. Last time we didn't get to see each other, so welcome, Justin.
Glad to be here.
Okay. Now you are I always like to give a little information before, I'm just a boring teeth maker, but you're a famous performer and musician. You have a band, or you're in a band, right?
I do have a band. Whether I'm famous or not, I guess, is open to discussion. We can debate that some other time. But I definitely, it's my profession, so yeah, that's what I do.
Okay, good. And you play all types of instruments.
Mm-hmm. I have a piano right behind me here.
Cool. Awesome. Well, that's great.
Mainly guitar. I've actually have a ukulele right by me. There's musical instruments everywhere. Yeah, that's what I do.
Cool. That's great. All right. Well, great. It's good to talk to you. I didn't even look to see what we were talking about. I just remembered. Exactly the context that we were speaking of. Maybe the thing that got this ball rolling for this hangout. What was it? The hangout that I just did with Greg Bray. Is that what kind of excited you to want to?
That's what we were talking about when we decided to do it, for sure.
Okay.
I did watch that though. So.
Okay. All right. And so, my perspective is that Mrs. Davis is fully within her right, and I would even say within her duty to not issue marriage license to homosexual couples, because homosexual cannot get married. Marriage is defined by a man and a woman in a complementary style for the purpose of procreation from the civil perspective, and you would disagree with that?
Well, yeah, it's legal for gay people to get married in the United States.
Well, the Supreme Court has deemed it so, and my big problem is that it is in. You would agree that the Supreme Court does not have the right to make law, but all they can do is interpret the Constitution, whether something is constitutional. Is that right?
Right. They can determine whether a law is within the bounds of the Constitution, but they did not make a law in this case.
That's right. Okay, right. Good. All right. So what they did is they said that it was constitutional to say that a man can marry a man and a woman can marry a woman. And my contention with that is that you cannot interpret the Constitution in a way that contradicts the Constitution.
Right.
And by saying it's an issue of the 14th Amendment, you are abrogating the First Amendment, which is the freedom of speech, freedom of religion. Mm-hmm. And so therefore, not only is it not a valid interpretation, that we as citizens have a duty to stand up against it and to disobey it. Not only can we, but we must stand up against things, because it's tyranny against our very founding document. And we need to stand up against these men that want to make a ruling that abrogates the very document they say they're interpreting.
Well, I think if you look at it a little bit differently, they didn't say the Constitution allows everybody to get married. What they did is they said that laws that prohibit gay people from getting married are unconstitutional. Right. That's a little bit different than the way you phrased it, though. So what they did is they said that if you make a law that says gay people can't get married, that is not constitutional.
That's right.
So they didn't make a law, or they didn't define. There wasn't like a definition that they redefined. They just said that if you make a law that prohibits a gay couple from getting married, then it is unconstitutional to do that, and you cannot do that. And that has happened many times with lots of different things, right? States have tried to make laws, and then the Supreme Court comes in and says, "Hey, that's unconstitutional. You can't do that."
That's right, but the interpretation of it cannot abrogate the First Amendment. That's the problem, because Christianity and homosexuality are at irreconcilable odds. They cannot be reconciled with each other.
Your specific brand of Christianity, I don't think can be. And I know that obviously you were like, mine is the true brand of Christianity, but I know plenty of Christians who are fine with it because they just don't feel that is as important as some other tenets of some doctrine of Christianity.
Right. But would you agree that within 2,000 years, this has never happened until just now, that where people call themselves Christians say homosexuality is pleasing to God?
Maybe not, but it's little no consequence to me.
No, it's everything, because what we're doing now is we're living in a postmodern society where truth is, yeah, I know you're a postmodernist, and that's why you always lose the argument. But the postmodernists say that everything that is true is merely a judgment, a personal judgment, and they don't hold to the fact of objective reality, that you make a judgment measured by the laws of thought that correspond to reality. And so they say, so you got people like Rachel Dolezal saying, I'm a black woman, even though she has no heritage from Africa whatsoever. And you've got, Bruce Jenner saying he's a woman, when it's just merely because he feels that way, therefore it's true. And so now we've got people say, well, the Bible says that homosexuality is virtuous, just because I think that's what it says, but they can't justify it with the text. Just like people say that there are people, do you agree that there are people today that are Christians that are atheists that call themselves Christians?
Yeah, there are non-theistic Christians who go by just the moral teachings of Christ, minus any miracles or divinity or heaven or hell or anything like that. They just go, hey, follow, you got the golden rule, you got all these things. So they practice the moral teachings, much like what Jefferson did with the Jefferson Bible.
Yes, I think that would be an accurate comparison, not to the same extent, because Jefferson believed that the belief in God was the foundation for the meta-narrative for the document that he was interpreting. So he never would have said that an atheist could be a Christian, although he did say he allowed his naturalistic perspective to force it upon the Bible. So in that sense, yes, he was very much the same way. But
he was called a heretic and an atheist by plenty of other people.
Who called him an atheist?
I don't have it pulled up or anything.
Yeah, you need to source that, because I don't think he can. He wasn't an atheist.
No, I'm not saying he was an atheist. I'm saying that people who didn't like his more naturalistic thought were calling him an atheist. I'm not saying he was an atheist.
I'd like you to source that, because I don't think it's right. I'm
not saying I think he was an atheist. He was definitely
no. I know what you're saying.
Yeah, he was definitely not an atheist.
I don't believe that's true.
You'd be hard pressed to find an atheist back in those days.
That's right. They didn't exist. The idea of an atheist was ridiculous to them, because atheism has no matrix for unifying the diversities of society. So they would have laughed at such a thing as foolish. And of course, today we're more enlightened, that we understand that we don't need to think about things, and we don't need to have rational coherence to bring forth the diversities of existence. So we're happy to be disintegrated, and of course that's what's happening in Western Europe right now.
Well, atheism doesn't have any doctrine or anything, so there's no.
Well, sure, it does. It has a doctrine that there is no God, right?
I mean, if you want to call that a doctrine, that's simply a description of what it is.
Is that an objective description?
If you're an atheist, an objective description? No, if we assigned different values to the words, we can make it into anything we want. There's nothing objective about descriptions.
But you can communicate with somebody about the reality.
As long as we both agree on what the words mean, and it makes sense within the context of what you're using them, then yes, you need intersubjective agreement for language, not objectivity.
Okay, but
regardless,
we're not going to get into that.
Yeah, let's not get too far off the point here. So as far as the Supreme Court being able to interpret, they did interpret that because the view against homosexuals getting married is a religious one in nature, that was not a good enough reason to be able to tell gay people that they cannot get married, and it violates the 14th Amendment.
So what you're saying
that's the argument, though, right? I mean, that's the argument.
No, because here's the problem with that. So what you're saying is that only those with a secular perspective can force their ideas upon others. Do you realize that?
As far as the government's concerned, the government stays out of religion and only makes decisions that have secular.
Only atheists can push their values onto other people.
No, there are plenty of religious people that are secularists. I mean, this is not an atheist. I mean, certainly most atheists are down with secularism, but there are plenty of religious people, deeply religious people, who are all for the same kind of secularist government, because they
what
know.
What do you mean by secular then? Please define that.
A government that does not, take sides with one religion, that allows people to practice their religion, stays out of the religion business.
Oh, okay. So it's got to be
and protects the rights of everybody to, as a person, as an individual person in the society, to practice their own religion.
Okay, so the government must be atheistic in its perspective, from your perspective, right? That's how you understand the separation doctrine.
It must be atheistic. I mean, it
cannot have any view on theism. In other words, when you say it's wrong to murder, you have to do it for no reason. You cannot do it because men are made in the image of God, right?
No, you have to do it for there has to be a secular reason. It can't be. It can't be.
But
just
secularism doesn't have a reason, right?
Sure, humanist. I mean, there's plenty of. I mean, there are religious people that are humanists too.
Oh, good. I'm glad to hear this, because this is the first time I've actually had somebody who would willing to tackle this. So you're telling me that secularism has a rational justification for the moral imperative for the sanctity of existence.
Sanctity is a strange word to be using, but yes, there are other philosophical concepts besides theism.
Okay,
but that could include theism. That
please delineate it.
No, once again, I mean, we're going to get off into why we shouldn't murder right now, basically.
Yes, that's because the founding fathers all 100% held to the idea that the very foundation for our intrinsic rights comes from God-given rights that are inviolable. That's the whole point of it. In other words, the founding documents of our Constitution, the Constitution itself, is founded in meta-narrative. You can't define it otherwise.
Why wasn't that mentioned in the Constitution?
It was specifically left out of the Constitution for the fear of a sectarian Christian belief to come and lord it over them all. Are you familiar with Roger Williams and the foundation of the doctrine?
A bit, yeah. I know about Roger Williams, yeah.
Okay, tell me about
it. He was a Baptist minister, who believed very dearly in the separation of church and state. Obviously, from where he came from in England, it was a big deal. And when he came over here, he was not liked by a lot of people for coming out and saying these views. Was it in? I can't remember everything right now. Was it in Virginia?
No, in Massachusetts.
Massachusetts, I'm sorry. And he actually came through and said, things like the government shouldn't have like blasphemy laws. You can't legislate things based off the 10 Commandments, blah, blah, blah.
No, he didn't say that.
Well, it's certainly specifically off the first 4.
Okay. Well, that's a little different.
Okay.
He said Congress. He said the government cannot regulate the first table of the 10 Commandments, which is verse 4, which are man's relationship to God. But they had a duty to uphold the second table, which is the last 6 of the 10 Commandments.
That's
the foundation for
which ones are? There's only 2 of the commandments that are in law right now. Right. Murder and theft.
Well, let's see.
Those are the only 2.
Murder. You shall honor your father and mother. You shall not murder. You shall not commit adultery. You shall not steal. You shall not lie. So that's one. And then you shall
Lying,
not,
well, lying under oath is different than just. It's not illegal to lie.
well, no, it is under oath.
Only under oath, but not as a citizen.
Right.
You can lie all you want.
Right. So we have drifted away from the original intent of our founding fathers. Would you agree with that? Because for them, this was not only is the Ten Commandments a foundation for American law, it's a foundation for Western culture. Alfred's Law Code, the first king of England, he's the one that codified Western law, and he founded it upon the Ten Commandments. So when people say, "Oh, we're not a Christian nation" or anything like that, it's like, well,
we're not a Christian nation.
No, we're not, but we are based upon the Christian meta narrative. Our entire culture is, and so is the Western.
Every culture is based on everything that happened before it. So I'm not going to deny that Christianity had a big influence on everybody for a very long time. There's no doubt about that. But as it stands right now, we're still moving forward. And the fact of the matter is now.
What do you mean by forward, Justin? I mean, this is so funny. You got to assume my perspective.
Well, no, moving forward, we keep analyzing arguments, we keep having philosophical discussions, and we keep coming to
what is the goal, though?
What is the goal? There's all
what are we
sorts of
aiming
goals.
for? No. There's one goal. We've taled about this over and over. There's one goal.
There's one goal in your perspective.
No, your perspective.
It may not be as nuanced as the goals that I think about.
Your goal is existence, is it not?
I like existence. I like being alive.
Yes. Every law you make is for the perpetuation of existence, is it not?
No, it has to do with quality of existence too.
Well, that's what I mean. When I say existence, I'm talking about full life, not just life, but full life. So, for example, you're going to say, "Oh, well, if somebody comes into their life, they can kill themselves." Okay, that's because you give up. In other words, because you come to the very end of it and you say, "I just can't do it anymore." Someone allows somebody to kiss it. It's still the fullness of existence. If in fact that person could live forever and be happy and joyful, you would fight for that. So it's the sanctity of existence. It always is. It always will be. And the problem is
because we recognize that we like it ourselves and we extend.
That's right. That's right. And so I'm asking you. You told me you could give justification as to why you are that way when it's not really true, when you're really an accident. Where does the purposiveness of existence come from? How do you justify that, other than just saying evolution did it?
I like it.
You can't do it, can you?
Well, I mean that is.
It's a just so story.
Well, the thing is that's completely sufficient for me.
I know, but because you don't care to think. This is the problem.
No, I think about it all the time.
Appease. Yeah, but any worldview, Justin, that is based upon blind, irrational faith is doomed to failure. That's why atheism is so silly.
That's why it keeps going up and up and up and up, and the numbers keep rising.
And our society is going extinct. Did you know that?
Well, why are you saying?
You know that every single industrialized nation has a negative fertility rate. Every single nation in the industrialized world is strapped with debt. Do you know what that means? That there's going to be inevitable, necessary collapse of every one of those nations? Do you not see it coming?
That may be the case. You never know. We won't know that until we get there. We won't know that till we get there.
Okay, so you're flying high. Hey, we don't care about anything. We don't need to think. Let's just fill our stomachs right now, just like the sophists did before Socrates showed us.
I usually wake up in the morning. I have a yogurt. I go outside and proclaim to the neighborhood that I don't like thinking, and that I can't wait for the doom of civilization. Yeah.
Oh no. You like to put yourself on a pedestal and say I do these things. But when Trey Jadlow asks you the question, you say, "Oh, I don't care about that. It doesn't matter. I don't need to think."
No, I do care. I do care. It's precisely my caring.
But you're not giving me a reason then.
It's precisely my caring that I'm appealing to. I do care about my life. I do enjoy things.
Yeah, but when you're asked to justify that, you don't want to think about it.
Justify that I'm alive and I enjoy things.
Why you value existence.
Why do I value something?
Give me a rational reason, yeah.
Because I gain pleasure from it. I have things I enjoy from it. It makes me happy.
You're just saying that life is good because life is good. I'm saying, how is it that unintentionality?
Why is God good? Because God's good.
Because God is existence. Is existence good?
I am existence.
You acceded that, right?
I am existence. I exist. I am.
No, no, you are not existence.
I am existence. I exist.
No, you are not existence. You came into being. You are dependent for your existence. You're contingent, are you not?
This specific form, possibly.
Yes.
That's
Okay.
fine. That doesn't matter. That doesn't. I am still existence. I am still part of existence. I exist.
You are part of existence, but you are dependent for your existence, right?
Am I God?
No,
No.
you are a contingent.
Okay.
That's why, therefore, you should
So
be grateful to
is God all of existence?
God is the foundation for existence.
But he is
Contingency
not
is
all of
not
existence.
God.
He is not all of existence. So
What do you mean is all? Are you saying pantheism?
no, he is not all of existence. Things
He is
exist.
the ground of all existence. In other words, he created
things
us.
exist that God is not.
Say it again.
Right? Things exist that God is not. Like I am not God, so I exist differently on a different level than God. In a way that God can exist like I can.
That's right. You're exactly right.
So how cool is that? It almost makes me have my own little awesome part of existence that I get that God doesn't, I guess.
Indeed, what you do, but it's dependent upon him. In other words, he's the one that holds it together. Every molecule of your being, for this very moment, every blink of your eye and every breath of your lungs is a gift.
Let's. I would love to have a specific hangout on on the existence of God, the basis for believing in God, what your view entails, what my view entails. Let's get back to the Kim Davis thing real quick, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Okay. So when we talk about this whole debacle that's going on, it basically comes down to does the freedom of religion in the First Amendment entitle a government agent to violate the rights of other people based on their own personal religious conviction?
Okay. And if it does, is the government forcing a view upon a religionist?
Well, she is the government.
No, there's a government above her that is just threw her in jail, remember?
Right. She is an acting member of the government.
Right. And who threw her in jail?
Another acting member of the government.
Right.
Who is
above her, right?
Well, they're meant to oversee, to make sure that people are acting in line with a government agent, like as a government agent should be acting in accordance to the laws of the country.
Right.
Correct.
Yes.
This is a religious objection to gay marriage, right?
Oh, yes, of course it is.
Okay. So does the First Amendment apply to state governments?
It applies to every governmental entity within our system.
So the state has a right of the state has a freedom of speech and a freedom of religion.
Yes.
Yeah.
They cannot establish a state church that everybody must adhere to.
No, I'm saying, does the state have the freedom to do that? Does the state have the same freedom that private citizens have, as far as the First Amendment is concerned?
Yes. I mean, what is it, the 11th or 10th Amendment, which says that the federal government only has those those rights enumerated specifically within the Constitution. Everything else is up to the states.
So the state can decide a state religion?
I don't know about that. I would hope not.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that's the case. So basically, what it comes down to is Davis is an acting member of the state. She is representing the state, right?
Right.
Okay. So if she comes through and says, my personal beliefs say that gay people shouldn't get married, is she within her rights as the state? As
not only is she within her rights,
she's acting as the state in this, right?
Well, I would hope so, because the state has not only has an obligation to disobey the federal government, they, I mean, not only have the right, but they have the obligation to do so because the federal government is trying to abrogate the very foundation of our country. She should be doing that. Can I read to you from the Declaration what it says?
Sure.
What our job is? We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. They are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights. Among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed, that whenever any form of government becomes destructive to these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or abolish it. In other words, we have the right to fight the government that wants to take away God-given rights. That's the whole.
That was specifically in response to a government that was pushing, originally pushing a state religion.
No, that was not. No, it wasn't. Remember what I said here.
That's why people came over here to. People wanted to have religious freedom, where the state didn't tell them what their religion was and what they could do according to a specific religion.
They came over here and they said, we want to establish different states, and they want to have each state have the different religious belief. And then Roger Williams came with his doctrine, which was very controversial at first, and thankfully it was adopted. I think Charles II even sanctioned it for some of the colonies that were opening up, because Charles came into power after a while. Charles came into power, and so no. So did you hear what I said? It says we hold these truths as self-evident, that all men are created equal and are endowed by their Creator. In other words, when you want to say there's no meta-narrative, when you want to say that there are no intrinsic rights, we have no rational justification for it, the state gives rights as it wants and the state takes rights as it wants to, we have an obligation to fight that tyranny and to rebel against them. That's our right from the Constitution. I mean, from the Declaration.
Declaration of Independence. Yes, you are allowed to fight anything you want.
Right. And we should, because those who hold the homosexual marriage have no meta-narrative. They deny intrinsic humanity's rights. You deny intrinsic humanity rights. And therefore, you need to be opposed and you need to be stood against with earnest.
Rights are not intrinsic. Rights are...
That's right.
Are shared.
That's exactly right. You deny the foundation of our country. Therefore, you should be stood against.
No, because lots of things have changed since the foundation of our country. I'm not going to sit here and just...
That's right. The mind has left. Mind has left in this. You don't have a justification for it.
You're saying that we should have stopped thinking in the 1700s.
No, you say we should stop thinking in 2015, and I'm saying
No, I'm saying we're continuing to think. And then we also 50 years from now.
Yeah, but you're not thinking.
I'm not?
You're feeling. You say, I feel like life is special. Therefore, it's special to me, but to nobody else. But I can't give any reason for it.
Lots of people agree with me that life is special.
So the strong rule the weak with their personal preferences.
Only in a theistic, only a theistic world does the strong truly rule the weak in the end. Because it turns out that
since the weak don't have existence without the strong. I mean, it's kind of funny. Does your neighbor have existence apart from you? Does he derive his existence from you? Therefore,
to me, he's just a character in my play, but to him,
that's exactly right.
I'm just a character in his play.
That's right. So it's different.
That's just how it works. I mean, that's just the nature.
That's right.
It's just the nature of how things work. We all have our own subjective experience.
That's right.
So, and there's no real way to reconcile them without just claims of, oh, you're irrational. Oh, you're irrational. No, I'm more rational.
No. It's I'm strong and you're weak.
You're weak, because that doesn't always play, because when people see injustices that they can empathize with on a mass level, then the people stand up, and it's not just who has the biggest army. But plenty of times
it is the people are the strong. That's what you're saying.
Plenty of times it has been the person with the biggest army makes the rules.
Always. Whoever has power, in your view, that's all it is personal preference backed up by muscle. It doesn't matter if it's Hitler. It doesn't matter if it's Pol Pot.
No, if you get enough people, I mean, there have been nonviolent revolutions.
Because they're so strong, right? But they don't have we always have founded law in the sanctity of existence until now. Now it's just Justin Mullinix thinks it's cool, and he's stronger. Therefore, he can strong arm the weak man who says that existence is not cool. But if the strong become where they want to kill everybody else, you can't justifiably say, oh, you're sinning or you're doing something wrong. You just say, I don't like that. And I'm not strong enough, therefore you win. It's the law of the jungle, Justin. That's all you're pushing.
I mean, so?
It's irrational.
I mean, that's not the way it's worked out, though.
I know, because we have Christians. We've had a Christian meta-narrative guide the entire Western civilization.
Things were working out before, and they will work out after that in plenty of secular communities. I mean, it has, it's not.
Never in the history of philosophy, Justin, has anybody believed that skepticism leads to unification or to coherence. Never. Only until now. And you guys are so smart.
Skepticism has been used by all sorts of. Descartes used skepticism for
the purpose of certainty, though. For the purpose of salvation,
which he never.
You're saying we need to throw that off. We need to just say everybody do whatever they want. We have no moral imperative. We have no reason for existence. What? Everything will be okay somehow. We don't know how, but somehow it will.
That escalates really quickly from your original state, from what you just said. You're like, oh well, because we can't find just one foundation everybody can agree on. It's a free for all.
Yes.
I mean,
I'm sorry, the muscle. I forgot the muscle. Yeah, the muscle rules. Hitler rules. Pol Pot rules.
The clergy rules. The church rules. Muscle. Oh, not only do we have muscle, but we also determine what happens after you die. So you better be on your P's and Q's.
Yeah, but here's the problem. If you're not on your P's and Q's, the question is not who has the power, but who has truth. That's the point, Justin.
You can't have truth. Truth is a property of a sentence.
That's right. So you are all about individual pleasure. Your whole world is based upon that.
I'm not a hedonist.
Whatever makes people happy is what they do, right?
No, well, people
You're an Epicurean, let's say that.
People will do things because it makes them happy, but everything is contextual. There's no one way to be like, just do whatever makes you happy. That obviously doesn't work.
As long as you say, let everybody do what makes you happy as long as it promotes existence. That's what you say, right?
No,
but you can't cut your neighbor's arm off. As long
as you get enough people to intersubjectively agree with you, then that's how your community will live. Okay, so we're getting back to it again. One thing you like to say is that by signing the license, she is blaspheming her God, right? By putting her name on it.
She must give an endorsement.
Because what she does is she says, when she signs it, you say that is equivalent to her saying, "I love gay marriage and want to go to your wedding."
I approve it. Well, I approve it. And I say
but that's not what it. But that's
she has to validate it, right?
That's not what it means for her to sign that. Her signature does not mean I endorse what is going on. Her signature means only that the person receiving the license has met the qualifications under the law to receive the license.
Yeah, and the law blasphemes her religion.
That's it.
Right?
But it doesn't mean I support it. It just means that according.
Well, sure it does.
No, it doesn't.
You're saying that.
No, it doesn't. There's nothing in there that says. There's nothing in there that says.
You just said it yourself.
No, I didn't.
You said that she has to sign that this person has met the qualifications for the law. The law itself blasphemes her religion.
Okay, there's plenty of laws that may blaspheme someone's religion. Let's. Okay, I know you're not big on the. You don't like the reductio ad absurdums because.
What do you mean? That's what I'm all about. I don't know if you don't
know
me that well.
Let's. Well, during the last discussion you had with
Greg,
Inspiring Doubt or whatever the show was.
Greg, yeah.
Greg, he threw out a few of them, and you really didn't respond to him by saying except for by saying, "Oh, you got nothing."
Okay.
You got nothing.
Take them.
Okay. Let's just do like a whole scenario here. Let's say Miss Davis went to go get his driver's license, but the office manager is a Muslim, and he can't, in good conscience, approve of a woman driving. Right? Mm-hmm. Okay. To do so would be against his religious beliefs. So she takes a bus. But the Kentucky bus driver, Kentucky director of transportation is a Jew, and he can't approve of operating heavy machinery on the Sabbath. And then say she would take a cab, but she can't because she hasn't received her paycheck because the postman is a Satanist and can't approve of financially rewarding Davis for imposing her religious beliefs on other people. What you have is a breakdown, an absurd scenario where nothing can ever get done because everybody's personal religious preference ends up running every little bit of society until nobody can do anything.
All right, so you gave a machine gun approach there. Let's take them one at a time.
They're all the same scenario.
No, they're not. Let's talk about them. Let's talk about them. If you really believe it, let's take them one at a time. Can we do that?
Yep.
Right. So we got the Muslim who doesn't want to give a driver's license to a woman, right? All right. Muslims, as I stated with my hangout with Greg, and this is why I kept telling you to watch it again.
I watched it again. I've watched it twice.
Okay. I haven't even watched it yet. But so the Muslims are our guests in the United States. Islam has no justification. They have no matrix or framework for the separation of church and state. We do not tolerate Sharia law. We are based on the Christian meta-narrative. Therefore, if they want to come in and tell us that we must make caliphs, if you're a Muslim and you allow the separation of church and state, you are no true Muslim and you deserve to be killed. That's what they believe.
Okay, so he was completely within his religious rights to do that.
No, so he can't. His rights end where our First Amendment starts.
In his case, because he's a Muslim.
That's right.
Okay.
Because Islam has no separation.
But that's still not preferring one religion over another, right?
It was in the context of Christian religion that this was written. Although there is tolerance given for even the atheist to exist and live the way he wants. But
unless they're gay,
but a Muslim cannot come and say, because of my First Amendment rights, I'm going to establish a Sharia law. And
no, it's not Sharia law. It's just one lone Muslim who, because of his religious beliefs, believes that women to be able to give a driver's license, to renew a driver's license, or whatever, to a woman goes against his personal religious beliefs. So he is being denied the right to practice his religion through his job. And if he didn't do it, there would be consequences, right?
Yeah. Did you hear what I said? I said that he is our guest. We're happy to have him in our country, but
it's not our country. It's not your country. It is everybody who is a naturalized citizen.
No, it's the constitutional country. That's our country. That's our founding charter. And when you try to violate our charter, you are not welcome. Don't you think that kind of makes sense?
Yeah, that's why Kim Davis was thrown in jail.
No, okay, Kim Davis is trying to stand up for the Constitution.
Let's go on to the next one.
Okay.
So the bus driver, okay, works for public transportation. Let's just make it all public.
Okay.
Public transportation. He's a Jew. She can't get on the bus because he's decided that because of his personal religious beliefs, and that no buses should run on Saturday.
Again, we have a document that is based upon a meta-narrative that is definitional. And therefore, to say that we cannot do something that is not founded in our Constitution cannot be...
Okay, all you'd have to do is point to a piece of the Constitution that says that every other religion besides Christianity is a guest in our nation and must abide by the rules. That's all you would have to do.
I just read it to you. Hold these true self-evident, they're all men are created equal.
That's the Constitution?
In other words, there is a...
That's the Constitution. What you're just reading there. That's the Constitution.
It's a foundation for a Constitution, yes.
Oh, no, it's not, though. It is not the Constitution of the United States of America. It's the Declaration of Independence.
Yes, but our Constitution was built upon the Christian meta-narrative. Do you agree with that?
I believe that people were influenced by Christianity deeply for a very long time and still are today. I'd also believe that they specifically left that out of the Constitution for a damn good reason.
Yeah, but no, they did. They left it out for a good reason to make sure that people would not come in because, as you well know, America is the first country to ever come up with a doctrine of the separation of church and state like it did.
In its Constitution, yeah.
Yeah, it's the first one. And so Roger Williams was the very first one to do a state like that in Rhode Island to do that, and he was severely opposed for that. But what was Roger Williams' goal in coming up with separation? It's a Christian doctrine, all right? Separation of church and state is a Christian doctrine. Now,
I was actually just arguing with somebody the other day who has very similar views to you in almost all ways about evolution and Big Bang and God and the whole thing, and could not see that Christianity had a separation of church and state built into it. So people disagree on that too. I'm
asking you for our conversation right here, Justin. I'm not asking about what somebody else says.
I know, but I'm just saying.
Roger Williams was a Christian who purposely, to protect Christianity, came up with the doctrine of separation.
Separation of church and state is great for Christianity. I think it's great for all religions.
But it's a Christian doctrine, right?
And I think that it can be interpreted as that, yes.
No, it's in original. When it was invented, it was in, Jesus says, give to Caesar what is Caesar, what is to God's, what is God's. There are different jobs. A Levite could only offer sacrifices. Uzziah the king tried to offer sacrifices and got leprosy. So Christianity is inherent. This is why I say Islam does not have this.
It wasn't the first one to come up with it, though. I mean, there were philosophers, before that who were all about separation and keeping the gods and the state completely separate. But Epicurus.
And what did he say?
Should I look up quotes or?
Well, just summarize what he believed.
It was a basic that you shouldn't be penalized for things like not believing in the state's gods and stuff like that. I mean, it's just a basic the idea of separation of church and state, where the state does not legislate a specific religion, unless there is a secular purpose and it happens to coincide with the rules of a religion, like murder, for instance, or stealing, for instance. These are things that can have completely humanistic reasons for doing it that happen to coincide.
You gave Epicurus and the Greek and Roman culture. They had their system of the gods for the very purpose of meta-narrative, for unifying the diversities. This is why I say it's so silly that now we think that we can do without it. Nobody in the history of mankind has ever thought that.
And one of the greatest philosophers of all time died partly for blaspheming the gods.
That's right, because they weren't real. He challenged people to think for themselves, which is what I'm trying to get you to do right now.
They thought it was real. I'm thinking for myself. So why couldn't the Jewish director of transportation decide that he can't sign off on machinery being used?
You mean
Saturdays
for the Sabbath? Because I said the founding meta narrative for our Constitution was the Christian one.
What's the founding meta narrative for the Christian one?
What do you mean?
What's the founding meta narrative for the Christian religion?
Oh, you're talking about Judaism?
Yeah.
Judaism.
Right.
However, but Judaism has been fulfilled.
So he can use the same argument and have even more of a stake.
No, he can't. Because again, people aren't wanting to think for themselves.
Christianity is an offshoot of Judaism.
That's right. It's a fulfillment. Justin, we're not living in a theocracy. This is the thing. Are we living in a theocracy?
What you're proposing would take us one step closer to doing that. No, it
wouldn't. Oh, good grief. What you're taking, you will lead us to absolute, complete, and utter disintegration. We're already headed there.
We live in
Europe
a
is already there.
Society.
What's that?
Right? A pluralistic society. Not everybody can get everything they want, right?
That's right. Pluribus unum. That's our state motto, our country motto.
We have to have
unum. We have to have a matrix to bring everybody together. That's right.
And you are fighting for the Christian religion to be that matrix.
I'm fighting for the Christian meta-narrative.
Right. Yeah. So you think the Christian meta-narrative should be how the government operates, and that's not a theocracy?
No. It needs to be the people need to think it through. Here's what I'd like to do, Justin. Here's what I'd like to have the freedom to do. We are living in a day right now that is incredibly irrational and anti-intellectual. It's really kind of amazing because the technology we have and the advances we have, but we are living in a time when the Christian church is very fideistic, embarrassingly so. Even in science, there's a lot of fideism that goes along. Even with you, with your secularism, is utterly fideistic. You can't give a rationality. I want to have a freedom to engage with you. This is the glory of America, that we don't force anybody to believe what we believe. I hate that. And I look at what the church has done in the past in forcing people to believe. And what it does is it desecrates the Christian faith. Christianity was never meant to be forced upon people, but actually to persuade people with reason and to give an argument. So that's what I'm trying to preserve right now, the freedom to be able to do that.
Why isn't that working if it's so much more
Well,
rational?
remember what I said? The church is very irrational right now. It was really the advent of Immanuel Kant who came with his philosophy that a lot of people just fell dead at his feet, and they latched onto the fideism. I mean, if you want Justin, if you want a real example of humanistic government in action, look to the French Revolution. That was the Reign of Terror. That was a wonderful expression of secular government. Do you know why we have the separation of powers?
For checks and balances?
Yeah, why?
To make sure that one can't set itself up as the ruling.
Because power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely, right?
That seems to be generally
so our founding fathers
a good statement to go by.
Okay, the French founders of their government system said man is basically good, and we don't need checks and balances, and it ended in a reign of terror. Our government says we're basically a Protestant nation. Those who founded our nation were founded in a Protestantism, and that it's the rights are. I mean, their anthropology was that man is sinful and wicked, and you need to watch him at every corner. That's what everything is about. That's what the Bill of Rights is. That's why the Anti-Federalists wouldn't allow it without those, because they said man is wicked, and we need to keep him in check. It's a Christian.
Yeah, that is about just as that's the other side of the extreme, and they're probably both as horribly wrong. So basically you're saying a Muslim or a Jew would not have the same entitlement to do something that a Christian person would.
No, and here's what I say. I don't want to make it sound like the Christians, just because they're Christians, get special treatment necessarily. I'm saying that the rational meta-narrative, in other words, you think it through and you think about what is the foundation of why we do what we do, it's Christian. And so when you got somebody coming in and they want
yours is.
Mine is, what do you mean mine
yours is Christian. I mean, when you think it through, that's what you end up with. Right?
No, that's what the founding fathers were. That's what I'm saying. That's what our Constitution is
not
the meta-narrative.
Not all the founding fathers were down with the entire thing.
Did all the founding fathers sign the Declaration of Independence?
A few of them were deist.
You didn't answer my question.
Thomas Paine.
Did all the founding fathers sign the Declaration of Independence?
What does that have to do with anything?
Well, you just say yes.
They
did, right?
If it's a rhetorical question, then just get on with the facts.
Okay. So they all signed on to the fact that human rights, which is the foundation of our Constitution, is based upon God giving rights that are unalienable and no man can take them away, right?
Creator, which can be interpreted in so many different ways.
Okay, but they believed in God, right? The God that's purposely created us and gave us intrinsic rights.
If you think that Thomas Jefferson believed in the same God you did,
I didn't say that, Justin.
They believe in. They might have believed in a God. A deist God is not God by your standards.
Yes, it is. A deist God is one who purposively who's the Lord of everything and gives rights to humans that are inalienable. Do you agree with that?
A deist God does not interact with anything after creation.
But a deist God gives men unalienable rights. Do you agree with that?
Not necessarily.
According to the founding fathers.
Possibly. I'm sure they all had different, you can go to the other extreme and go read Thomas Paine. I'm sure you're probably not a big fan of Thomas Paine, right?
I'm not a big enemy of him because he believed in intrinsic rights given by God. This is the whole point. Right. He didn't like organized religion
at all.
But he was not an atheist like some of your friends like to say. It's ridiculous.
He was
our whole Constitution would fall apart if there were one atheist in there, because they were all unanimous in the necessity of having a creator who gives unalienable rights. That's the point, and you deny that, and that's what I'm saying. We need to oppose you. We need to oppose everything that you stand for, because you will destroy our country.
It doesn't matter. That's the Declaration of Independence. It says Creator. It does not say God. It does not say Jesus. It doesn't matter what they believed in.
It doesn't matter.
When they got around to writing the Constitution, they knew that there should be a strong separation between church and state.
Who said that? The Christian? Who came up with that doctrine?
Thomas Jefferson.
Thomas Jefferson. This was written 150 years before Thomas Jefferson ever came.
He said the wall of separation between churches.
Yeah, he copied. Roger Williams wrote that in the Bloody Tenet of Persecution in 1644.
Yeah, good on Roger Williams. Good. I'm glad he came around and started.
So it's a Christian doctrine, right?
It is. It is from a lot of different philosophies leading up to Roger Williams. Did not just come up with everything on his own.
No, he came up with his doctrines from Sir Edward Coke and from Francis Bacon. Bacon was all about empiricism and testing things. Bacon says, I got a quote here, it says, Bacon said, truth is a daughter of time, not of authority. In other words, we don't take things as truth just because somebody tells us so, but Bacon says we need to test it and see if it's true. And so he was one of the major influencers of Roger Williams, along with Edward Coke. And it's funny because Coke and Bacon were absolute enemies. And Bacon was a really kind of a dog of a person, and he supported James and Charles, and they wanted to make a divine right of kings again, and they want to do with people's rights. Cook was like, no, we need to have individual rights. Cook wrote the Petition of Right in 1628, and he fought tooth and nail for individual rights. So seeing those two guys, you got to test everything. Just don't believe what people say. And you need to have strong individual rights. So again, he came up with the castle doctrine. Every man's house is as his castle. And those two men formed him in a major way. So he came here and he said, we need to be open-minded and test things out. And we need to stand for individual rights because God has given us those rights. And and he was a major influence, and people don't know this, on John Locke. All the founding fathers wrote Locke.
I know he was.
Locke was formed by Roger Williams.
Yeah,
Williams was a genius.
Locke was definitely a fan of him, for sure. Absolutely, he was. There's no denying that at all. I mean, Locke even said plenty of stuff that I don't agree with. I mean, there's lots of philosophers that I don't. I can find someone to disagree with just about anybody. And so can you, and so can just about anybody else. You might be online with everything Sproul says, but
almost.
But besides that, maybe no one else. I think what I'm getting into here is that while it does, from your perspective, you're saying, listen, there's no way we could even come to this if it wasn't for Christianity in the first place. So we have to keep that in mind. We have to respect the Christian meta narrative over other things. It doesn't matter if a Muslim's in here; he's here as our guest because what we have is a Christian meta narrative. It doesn't matter if the Jew is here; he's our guest because we have a Christian meta narrative, and that's what's going on. And that's why. I mean, this is what it seems like. That's why the case with Kim Davis is different from the exact same cases. If you take, let's just say you take all that away, and you're not saying anything. You're always saying is that a state should not be able to impose a religious belief upon the constituents, especially protected by the 14th Amendment. You can't treat anybody differently. Everybody has to. If you're a naturalized citizen or born here, you have the same rights as everybody else. But you're saying that this does not apply if it is a Christian thing, if it is under the Christian meta narrative. And what it seems is that you don't have any interest in equality. You have interest in Christian privilege.
Well, Justin, do you agree that?
And Davis is not being denied any rights. She is being denied privilege over what somebody else would have in the same exact scenario. And for a long time, Christianity has had privilege. And when you take privilege from a group of people who have had it for a long time, it seems a lot like persecution to them. But to the rest of us, it seems like we're finally getting equality.
Okay.
And so Christian persecution, when I hear it now, is basically just becomes synonymous with equality.
Okay. Now,
At this point, when I hear Christian persecution, I'm like, oh man, this is probably actually pretty good for the country.
okay.
Because it's
So
not actually being persecuted.
okay, you need to define that term. You said it several times, and the very first time you said it, I wanted to ask you, what do you mean by equality?
I mean that everybody is treated the same under the law.
Okay, so the murderer should be treated the same under the law as the charity worker.
What? No, under the law that if two people murdered somebody and somebody did it because God told them to, and somebody just murdered somebody else because they caught him in bed with their husband or wife, you can't give preference to one because God told them to. That's equality.
But so you're saying that equality is you're relying upon a matrix by which to define whether something should be equal or should not be equal, right?
Under the law. So whatever the law
you're putting it in the context of should that is definitional, right? Because all men are not treated equal. Child molesters are not treated equal as the President of the United States, right?
If two people break the law regarding that, they should not be treated differently.
Okay, please define should. Again, with your perspective, it makes no sense whatsoever.
Define should. I'm saying that's
the moral imperative
that is what the 14th Amendment is saying. We have a Constitution.
The 14th Amendment is written under the Christian meta-narrative, right?
So under the Constitution, in context of the Constitution, if you would like to follow it, they should not show any preferential treatment to a specific religion.
Yes, but Justin, you're taking my meta-narrative to try to use the Constitution and then to demolish it and say we can ignore.
I'm doing it. I'm using it in context of I'm starting with the Constitution.
Okay, how do you define equality though?
I'm using it in context.
Worldview.
What
do you mean by equal?
I'm just using equality to say that in Kim Davis's specific circumstance, she should not have privilege because of her religion, whereas a Jew or a Muslim would not have the same privilege to do that, because it would lead to an absurd circumstance if everybody could just be like, hey, sorry, that goes against my deeply held religious beliefs, so I'm not doing it.
Okay, but Justin, you're
giving and as a private citizen, you are allowed to do that. As a private citizen, she is allowed to say, I will not do this. And they will say,
why is she allowed that as a private citizen?
Because that is the rights that we have all agreed to afford to each other.
Oh, so it's not rights given to her by God.
No, it's rights given to we have a contract in the Constitution.
That's
we have a social hand. We have a social contract. Have you not? I mean, have you read John Locke?
I have not.
Okay. Do you know
the social contract?
Have you read Rousseau? Have you read Rousseau's social contract?
No, but I'm familiar with Rousseau.
It gets real hard to discuss these things when.
No, Justin, you're not understanding. Rousseau was written in a context. Locke was written in a context, and Locke was interpreted in a context which is completely different from Rousseau, and you cannot ignore that.
But you wouldn't even know that because you haven't read them.
I do know that Locke was in the.
I can go grab my copy of the social contract out of my room right now. You know, you want to talk about?
Trying to pull a fast one, Justin.
No, I'm not trying to pull a fast one. But when you accuse me of not thinking, when you accuse me of not looking at the stuff, I have the books. I'll go show you my philosophy.
No, you don't need the books. Just tell me right here. Was Rousseau written in the same context as Locke?
You want to talk about Rousseau, and you want to talk about Locke.
You want to talk over me. What you want to do?
No, come on. And you want to talk about these guys, and you have never even read them.
Oh my gosh! I know that Locke was not written in the same context as Rousseau.
How do you know that?
Because Rousseau was a humanist.
So John Locke was not a humanist.
He was written within the context of the Christian meta-narrative. Moreover, they didn't use Rousseau to write our document. They used Locke. Those were the man that they really relied upon.
Jefferson was a fan of Locke, and Hume for that matter. So I think it still gets the point, and I think it might end on the same point as it did before. Is that what what it appears to be, and I think I've shown it reasonably well, is that you are literally asking for Christian privilege when it comes to being an agent of the government. We're in the same exact circumstance. If it were a Muslim or a Jew or a Buddhist or an atheist or anything else, they would not have the same rights. You were saying that there is a way for a Christian to be like, I'm sorry, this doesn't go with the Christian narrative, so this is completely within my rights to deny this to you.
Well, yeah, what I'm appealing for is to apply the mind to look at the context of our Constitution and try to think about the way it was written, the purpose for which it was written, and then apply that to the society. I'm not appealing for somebody to beat somebody over the head with a hammer, but I am appealing for objective definition, which you don't even hold to. All you hold to is personal emotivism.
What could that even possibly mean? An objective definition? That doesn't even make sense.
A definition that is according to God, that is self-existent.
You either agree on a definition and you use it, or you don't. If me and you both,
but you have to
if you and I both
the laws of law.
If you and I both agreed that orange, the word orange, stood for what we now understand is a hammer, then that would be the word for it. There's nothing objective about it.
Justin, what's the difference between a fact and an opinion?
Not much.
Okay, so this is why you could never go very deep.
That's a whole different discussion. That is a whole different discussion.
Yeah. And it's silly. I mean, it's really
a fact, or a truth. When you say something is true, it is no different than you saying, "I believe this is true." You go, "I believe that it's raining outside."
That's right.
It is raining outside. When you say
so human rights are just an opinion; they're not a fact. Humans. That's what I'm saying. This is the whole thing. Your whole worldview will lead to disintegration.
No, it's actually doing pretty well. We live in some pretty peaceful times. We're getting more and more secular.
Did you remember what I said, that we're going extinct? That we are strapped with debt? Every single Western industrialized country is strapped with debt, and they have a negative fertility rate. Therefore, they are going extinct.
If you think humans are going extinct anytime soon, I don't know.
Well, maybe you ought to read a book. Look up Jonathan Last, What to Expect When No One's Expecting.
I'll start. What to Expect When Expecting. Reminds me of when I was reading books when my kid was born.
That's what it's talking about. What's going to happen when we don't have kids? Okay, Justin, let's go ahead and close this thing
let's
down.
Close it up. That was good. Good talking to you. I think I don't know if we covered any new ground or anything, but now you can't complain that I haven't done a hangout with you.
No, I appreciate it, and it was very stimulating, and I thought we had a good discussion. And hopefully we can continue in the future. You know, I'm very fond of you and consider you a friend. I don't know if you like me.
Despite our our beliefs being almost polar opposites, I would say we both have some pretty cool beards, so that's not too bad. We can agree on some things. We both like bass players.
Yeah.
So let's do it again. Next time, let's do it on some ontological stuff. Let's epistemological stuff. Let's do some philosophy stuff next time.
That sounds good, my friend. All right, we'll talk to you later, man.
See you, brother.
All right, have a good one.